This channel, the purpose of this channel is to help people like my parents who have done the right thing for 35 years, bought property, immigrated to the United Kingdom, bought property, built a property portfolio for their two sons, thinking it was the right thing to do, slaving away every single day and saving every penny to invest in that property portfolio back in the United Kingdom, only to realize that 35 years later, that property portfolio needs to be worth 80% more than it is in order to maintain the value of the pounds that were printed. That's who this is for, which is why I need you to subscribe, why I need you to share the video, so people can understand Bitcoin price action from this perspective, not the hype and the the crypto YouTube perspective that is out there right now. So here's my thoughts on price action of Bitcoin, what the Bitcoin price will do upon a spot Bitcoin ETF approval. I don't want anyone to get confused thinking that we're all out here just, moon boy mathing all the way, and that, as soon as the ETF gets approved, the price is going to go vertical. That's not what I'm saying at all. I want to give you my perspective on what's going to happen with market dynamics, typically how markets tend to work on the approval of these things, so you can have a better understanding of exactly how I envision price to go and where I'm bullish on the ETF and why I'm bullish on the ETF as an investor that comes from with a background of real estate, stocks, gold, etc., right? On approval, I think we see a sudden spike and then a heavy dip, right, shortly after. I think it will be a sell the news event. As we get closer to the actual trading date, we'll start sliding back up again. The price will start coming up, right? And then I think price action only turns super bullish once we start trading. But if I had to bet, if I was a betting man and based probabilities, I would say there's a 70% chance of exactly what I'm saying is going to happen, right? We'll see a spike up, then a dip, etc. And in fact, if there is a dip, absolutely we'll be buying it because of the ETF, and I'll be thanking the institutional powers that be for giving me that dip, right? So, because here is how the ETFs will be acquiring Bitcoin. A lot of people don't understand this. It's a lie that the ETF has to acquire Bitcoin or any other underlying asset before trading day, right? Because the process for an ETF structure is so simple, right? As soon as the fund starts trading, the fund receives the cash from the investors, and the cash gets sent to its exchange of choice. In this case, it's going to be Coinbase, right? On across the whole of it, so you got Fidelity, etc. But Coinbase, for example, Coinbase will execute the buying of that Bitcoin, then send it to the appropriate custody accounts, which for most of these ETFs is Coinbase custody. So you have the cash that comes in, gets sent to Coinbase exchange, they acquire the Bitcoin, then send it over to Coinbase custody, and then it's allocated to the ETF. That's how it's typically going to work. If there's sell orders, right, the sell orders come through, Coinbase sells down the Bitcoin on behalf of the fund and sends back the cash. That's how this whole thing works. This happens on a daily basis, and therefore you don't need to pre-buy Bitcoin. The first day the cash comes in, you buy the Bitcoin, you're off and running. Now, there might be some retail front running that might happen, but I think that there will be institutional shorts on the market that will far outweigh the front running until the capital can truly start coming in via investment funds. Remember, investment funds can't get into Bitcoin until it starts trading. So you might have hedge funds, you might have certain people, retail clients, etc., trying to front run the ETF, and that could work. But generally speaking, I think institutions always have a plan around sell the news events. BlackRock will have a plan. All of the Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, all these guys will have a plan to sell the news and then watch it get bought up afterwards. I think a lot of people think that the ETFs, you got to judge whether the ETF is successful on day 3 of trading. I think that's absolute horseshit, and that's not how you should judge any investment opportunity, especially like a new Bitcoin ETF, right? I think the way that you judge the ETF and the success of the capital coming into the ETF should come over 3 months, 6 months, and then 12 months post ETF approval, right? It's not going to be in the first week. The first week could be fantastic. We could have a great first week, but really what you want to do is see how much capital is locked into that ETF after the first 3, 6, and 12 months, right? Now, I might get this wrong. We might see shorts get lifted a lot sooner than what I'm saying, right? Front running might start and might be powerful enough because of hedge funds, et cetera, to enter a super bullish period immediately after the approval. But I doubt it based on every other experience I've had in the markets. Now, the key thing here is that there is a lot of doom and gloom boomering going on with people talking about why ETFs, have all this hype around them when other countries have them, but those other countries couldn't get enough capital in, et cetera, et cetera. These people are dumb, right? The U.S. capital markets are 40 times bigger than the United Kingdom alone, right? So you've got to look at how powerful the United States is and the United States capital markets are. And also, most importantly, if capital around the world is driven by people like BlackRock, no one's gonna, even if you just have your funds in the UK or Europe or wherever, you're not going to move until your overlords, in this case BlackRock, tell you to move. And BlackRock's now starting its marketing campaign for Bitcoin, right? So you want to focus on that. Focus on the fact that there is a process to this. Focus on the fact that this is not this is not an immediate, once it's done, it starts shooting up. Remember, gold had an 8-year bullish run after the ETF was approved, right? It had a couple years bullish before that, even as the run up to the ETF was happening. And then as soon as the ETF was approved, it was 8 years of run up. Now, I might start coming across bearish to some people, and I want to say, you're looking at it completely wrong. You're looking at it like a $10 a month DCA gang member, right? This is not about the next day. I'm looking at the next 10 years. The amount of capital that this unlocks, the ETF unlocks, to come in over the next 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, the amount of time that your children are going to need to take over that Bitcoin, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the next 5 days after approval. I don't care what happens in the next 5 days after approval. Why? Because for any number of reasons, you can have a low amount of capital go into these ETFs on the immediate days after approval, but it doesn't change the fact that Bitcoin is the hardest, safest, most secure asset on earth, and that's what people are going to be looking for over the next decade, over the next 2 decades. I urge you, if you think that I'm coming across bearish in this video, to understand what Bitcoin is more and understand the long-term viability of it and not get attached to the short-term price action of it, right? Short-term market games will always be just that. They're just market games. There is a reason why JP Morgan is putting out a report, to its clients and asking about the fact that, there were all these ETFs in Canada were approved, and how come there was no capital that came in, not much capital that came into Bitcoin on there? Well, because the Canadian markets are shit compared to the U.S. markets. The Canadian markets, are like a mole on a bull's ass, like compared to the U.S. capital markets. Most importantly, most of the capital that's run through Canada is instructed and managed and directed by BlackRock. So, and all of these other U.S. managers. So if they don't have the thesis yet, like, okay, you can have a fund in Canada and that's cool, but if you don't have the directive to get into the fund, then it's all pointless, right? JP Morgan is putting out shit like that to try and distract people from what is actually going on, because they probably have short positions. They're probably going to have short positions open in the market to drive the price down to profit from the sell the news event. This is what JP Morgan does. If you think a bank is going to come out here, I replied to a tweet about this. If you think a bank is going to come out here like JP Morgan and openly ask a genuine question in a report, in an investment report, you don't understand how the game works. These are marketing reports. These are designed to allow them to get a feel and massage the market to think the way that they want them to think, right? So I really want to do this video now because I don't want anyone panicking if and when the price goes down after the approval. If you're expecting it to go up immediately, I think you're going to be disappointed. We may see a heavy spike, but I think there will be a dip prior to the actual starting of trading, unless that starting of trading comes a week after, which I don't think it will. So it's really important right now. We're about to enter a field and a moment where everyone is going to be competing with everyone else to buy Bitcoin at the right time. right? Because that's what traders think that is right. And eventually they're going to realize that they just need to buy Bitcoin. And that's when the FOMO is going to start. The FOMO will start because this is the first epoch of Bitcoin where the balance on exchanges is going down every single day compared to going up, which was going on in the last cycle. So you got the balance going down, you got worldwide institutional demand about to be unlocked because of the US ETFs, and now, you know, you're sitting there being told that if the price doesn't go up immediately, then the ETFs failed. That's not how to look at it. It's the next 10 years you want to look at. It's the next 10 years of capital deployment that you want to look at, especially for an asset that has finality of scarcity. So that's what I think is going to happen to price action immediately after approval. We'll see whether I'm right or not, but most importantly, there's still only 3 rules to Bitcoin. Step number 1, you buy Bitcoin. Step number 2, you shut the fuck up. And step number 3, you get fabulously wealthy.